speaker and theme for today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jihad. I'm really very happy to be part of this. All the more, it is a series that carries interest to a very, very broad audience. We usually tend to live in little circles, like architects with architects, historians with historians, archaeologists, artists, and so on. And I think it was a brilliant idea to do this series around, in this case, a material, but a material that actually changed the world, of course, and is constantly worse. And we will discuss this with Antoine and probably later in the debate. I hope that the lecture will trigger interesting discussions. I think we will have time at the end. I would like, before introducing Antoine, if you allow me, Antoine, to say a few words about glass. And I'm very happy, and many of the people in the audience are architects, and they know that Lacaton et Vassal, for example, won the Pritzker Prize this year. These are people who have put the users at the core of their concerns. And I was very happy to be in the jury of the European Award for Architecture, the Mies van der Rohe, in 2019. And we gave them the award for their buildings in Bordeaux. They actually renovated existing buildings by simply adding glass facade at a certain distance and giving space to people. So glass and space are probably extremely important, because when we say glass, of course, we're going to speak about light. And Antoine is very well placed to speak about this with his long experience at the Renzo Piano building workshop. But just a very, very quick overview about glass. Glass used in major buildings started, of course, with the Romans, but with the recent architecture, we're talking about the 1830s with the Galerie d'Orléans in Paris. Then came in 1850-51, the Crystal Palace in London by Joseph Paxton. And this is so important that, for example, Rifat Shadirji, closer to us, the late Rifat Shadirji, the Iraqi theoretician and architect, titled one of his books, Al-Ukhaydir wal-Qasr al-Billawri. Al-Ukhaydir is an old fortress, all closed and solid and so on. And you have the glass cage, which is the Crystal Palace. And he actually uses those two as extremes and uses the Crystal Palace to say how much things have changed since Al-Ukhaydir. And I urge everybody to read this in Arabic. Unfortunately, there's no translation to it yet, but it's an extremely important book. Then you have in the 1920s the idea that glass was going to change the world for the better with these utopian architects, the expressionists and so on, the Glaserne Kette or the glass chain in Germany. You have, of course, Frank Lloyd Wright's Johnson Wax building with the facade of PX glass tubes in 1939. You have the Farnsworth House by Frank Lloyd Wright, 45-51, this sort of new paradigm with a glass box. You have the first curtain wall with the Lever House in New York by Gordon Bunshaft. And just right after this, the curtain glass of Louis Kahn at the Yale University Art Gallery, which is a very poetic building, to use Antoine's words. Then you have Peter Zumthor brilliantly using glass, a skin of translucent glass around his museum, the Kunsthaus in Bregenz in 1997. I'm doing a very, very brief course if you want. Then in locally, local architects might want to remember with me the important Starco building that had in 55 already a fabulous facade made of two skins of glass with micro louvers inside. It was really state of the art at the time. Unfortunately, completely changed after the explosion that took the life of Shatah. Ahmad Shatah, the Starco was seriously damaged after that. Unfortunately, they changed all this skin. You have the Moore building, the horseshoe building, first curtain wall in the country, 1957. Then came the Casino du Liban with a fabulous facade of glass protected by sunscreens of concrete by Claude Parent, the French architect. Unfortunately, those sunscreens were demolished, and now we have a sleek tinted glass that seems to than the concrete that was in front of it. We can discuss this later. You have the Maison de l'Artisan 63, 65, extremely important, today dressed by a fake garb. And last and surely least, Sama Beirut, all tinted glass. And here I would like to read a couple of lines by Yohanni Palasma in his book, seminal book, The Eye of the Skin, where he says, the increasing use of reflective glass in architecture reinforces the dreamlike sense of unreality and alienation. Of course, we're talking about how bad the use of glass can be, but I'm sure we will speak about other things later in the lecture. He says, Palasma says, the contradictory opaque transparency of these buildings reflects the gaze back unaffected and unmoved. We are unable to see or imagine life behind these walls. The architectural mirror that returns our gaze and doubles the world is an enigmatic and frightening. But I'm glad to see that we'll speak about something else today. Last but not least, I would like to speak about the explosion. Jihad mentioned it. We all know that next to the ammonium nitrate, the second material responsible for the most damage, 200 people died, 6,000 wounded, was glass. The material that mostly hurt people was glass. And in order to forget that, it's very difficult to forget. I need to go through a poetic journey with Antoine and to maybe resort to a saying related to a glass of another sort, which is داوني بالتي كانت هي الداء. So we will speak about fortunate use of glass today. Antoine is a friend, a dear friend. I'm very happy to present you Antoine. So Antoine Chaaya is an architect diplômé par le gouvernement in Paris, and he's based at Renzo Piano, Lebanon, studied architecture at the Holy Spirit University of Kaslik, UZEK. After graduating, he joined Piano's office in Paris in '87 and worked as a lead architect on a variety of projects, including the Kanak Cultural Center in New Caledonia and Potsdamer Platz in Berlin. Since becoming a partner in 1997, Antoine has been the partner in charge of major projects, including the Broad Contemporary Art Museum and the Resnick Pavilion at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the new Columbia University Manhattanville campus with 4 academic buildings, as well as the Beirut City History Museum on Martyr Square. More recently, as partner in charge, winner of the prestigious competition of the Hospital University campus of Grand Paris Nord, Antoine was appointed member of the Renzo Piano Building Workshop Board in 2014. He was elected as a distinguished alumnus at ZEC and is the patron of the class of young architects 2017, distinction in 2018 as well. Antoine is an honorary member of the Lebanese Green Building Council. He lectured widely in France, Italy, Denmark, Canada, Lebanon, and the USA, including talks at Columbia University's Graduate School of Architecture, as well as the American Institute of Architects, New York, and the Middle East. Antoine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, George. I will try to share my screen.
For questions, you write them in the chat or raise your hand and probably Hiba will give us a sign of that.
Okay, I think you see the screen.
Not yet. Yeah, now we do. I suspect you have to click on your file.
What? Because I just 1 second. I have it on the screen. You don't see it yet, correct?
No, we don't. Maybe you want to open the file first and then share the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, If it's a PowerPoint, maybe you want to launch the PowerPoint from below.
That's okay now?
Yes, you can launch it. Yeah, that's it.
Sorry. Okay, so thank you, George, for this introduction. I would like also to thank Hiba and Jihad for having invited me for this multidisciplinary lecture series on glass, which I found very much interesting and inspiring. I will be approaching the topic from its light side versus the dark side. That means I will be talking about its promising and joyful side, the promising and joyful side of this magic material. And of course, from an architecture standpoint, through a selection of our completed project, trying to highlight some design criteria, such as the physical composition and properties of glass, which is a real science, by the way, that allow us to push the material limit to reveal its poetry, so that architecture is a real balance between science and poetry. A glass is very old material, and it was initially used in architecture as a decorative element. Just to start, originally, the term of window indicate the opening in a wall that provide natural ventilation and light without automatically or necessarily assuming glazing. In order to provide weather protection from wind, rain, and cold, wooden shutter or drapery element has been used. The glass window came later on. First, for its major interest in allowing for light penetration into the space while protecting from weather condition. In the beginning, it was opaque, then becomes translucent or colored, and progressively, glass becomes transparent, adding a new advantage, a new dimension to the interior space, allowing for exterior clear view. And one day in 1851, the Crystal Palace showed up. It was a glass and cast iron structure designed by Joseph Paxson, as you mentioned, George, and built for the great exhibition in Hyde Park, London. It becomes the reference for the largest glass building in the world and opened a new chapter in the history of architecture. So beyond its functional role, allowing for light penetration, weather condition protection from wind, rain, and sun, allowing also for exterior view, glass can play a major role in expressing transparency, luminosity, and celebrating poetry in architecture. And because light is essential for life in general, and for a human being, for human life in particular, since it affects both our physical health and psyche, we dedicate great attention to it. So architecture for us is also an expression of transparency, lightness, and luminosity. A glass which is natural, sustainable, and fully recyclable material is in the heart of our approach. Accordingly, the glass selection criteria is a highly important design factor, in particular for some, I'm trying to close this window at the left. Do you see window at the left, correct?
No, we don't.
Okay, maybe on my screen only. Okay, that's fine. So I was saying these design criteria are very much important, in particular for some specific project, such as a museum, where the quality of daylight is crucial for artwork exhibition. In particular, the color rendering factor, which should be as high as possible, ideally close to 100, but not less than 96. Reason why the use of low iron glass is highly recommended to avoid any unintentional color deformation coming from daylight through a less clear glass. A glass, as I said, is a magical material that changed the perception of the space in mitigating or even deleting limits between inside and outside. For the Beyeler Museum in Basel, the roof looks like a flying carpet made out of glass panels, which is acting as a light filter while protecting from direct sunlight. The roof is composed of inclined frit glass panel that filter the daylight penetrating inside the art gallery, providing a homogeneous diffuse light and generating a comfortable environment for artworks exhibition. At the same time, creating a sense of lightness and luminosity, where the roof looks like levitating above the ground, adding poetry to the building, adding poetry to the building semantics, and somehow leading a voice to the building to sing. So architecture remains this dreamlike journey to the border of dreams and reality. As I previously said, glass is used for its major interest that allows for light penetration into the space, even when exterior view not required or not recommended. This is what happened with the Hermes headquarters in the heart of the very busy district, the Ginza district in Tokyo, giving the proximity of the vis-a-vis to the surrounding building and also the program needs, which is mainly shops, workshops, exhibition space, and some offices. A view to the exterior was not required or desired. The idea was to dress the building with a veil of glass bricks, a sort of kimono in crystal, made up entirely of custom 40 by 40 centimeter glass bricks, creating luminosity such as a magic lantern in the Ginza district. The glass bricks facade is an innovative anti-seismic facade system made of a flexible steel structure and elastic dampers. So in case of earthquake, this flexible glass wall would follow the seismic movement and without breaking. Inside the building, workshop and exhibition are completely immersed in the daylight. On the top floor, a reinterpreted Zen garden was set up, where trees and shallow pond contrast with the glass bricks, so that from one side technology and from the other side we have nature, and both are intertwined together. Now, I would like to have a little bit more technical discussion. So a glass is magic thanks to its physical composition and properties, because they can deeply influence the glass appearance and the quality of light going through the glass. Reason why we have to pay attention to the following visual aspect. First of all, is the degree of transparency. And when we talk about transparency, we will be talking about low iron glass versus a regular float. The second one is we have to talk about the main glass type to later talk about their problem. So we have the annealed, we have the heat strengthened, and we have the tempered. I will be mentioning only these big types. And then we have to talk about some visual issues related to the glass type selection. That means flatness versus distortion and waving effect, anisotropy effect. And last, I would like also to say something about coating, which we have mainly three types of coating: the low E coating, low emissivity, we have the solar coating to stop the solar heat gain. The first one is to keep the energy inside the building. The solar coating is stop the solar heat gain outside the building. And then the third one that we use from time to time is architecture coating. The notion of transparency is relative. And this is before talking about any coating. Typically, a glass has a ferric oxide content close to 0.1%. Reason why, it has a blue-green tinge, the edge is blue-green, while low iron has 10 times less that amount with a very clear edge. Then, of course, we can have in between the mid iron, but this is something else. So this factor is a very important factor because it allows for better color neutrality and transparency, more daylight, and better light transmission. By the way, to go further, the crystal, le cristal, is a glass with a high lead content, which give it more intense shine. I talk about the main type of the glass because I will be talking about their problem. So the first one is the anneal. The choice of the glass type is also an important design criteria because it allows to avoid some undesirable visual effects, mainly such as anisotropy or waving effect. So with the annealed glass, we are very safe. Perfect flatness, no problem. When we use the heat strengthening, we have always a risk of anisotropy effect. When we go with the tempered glass, we have another problem, which is the waving effect coming from the effect of the roller in the machine when the glass is heated. Of course, the tempered glass is 2 to 5 times stronger than regular glass, have the advantage of breaking into small, but will require a heat soak test to avoid spontaneous breakage. This is something else. This is also about science. What happened inside the glass? I was talking about the three types, the annealed, the heat strengthened, and the tempered glass. The annealed, we have uniform distribution between tension and compression inside the material. In the heat strengthening, because the heat that we expose the panel to it, we have a moderate tension and compression inside. While when we use the tempered glass, we have extreme tension inside. And this factor will have influence the aspect of the glass, as we will see. And of course, if we're talking about breakage, the three will break in different way. The annealed one will break in big pieces. And for this reason, when you talk about with the Bureau de Control, will direct you to something else, which is not necessarily a good choice. When you go with tempered glass, will break in small pieces, and when we go with laminated glass, will break and will stay in place. Reason why we very often use the annealed glass in laminated assembly. So when it breaks, will not fall in big pieces, but it'll stay in place so you can come and change it. Then the heat is strengthened. What happened? The heat in the surface of the glass, we have some compression, and this reaction will create the anisotropy. And what is the anisotropy? Very often happen with the heat strengthened, as I said, but also sometime with the tempered glass. And as you can see, you have some effect, which is the glass looks like dirty, is not clean, and with different color also. With the tempered glass, we very often have another visual issue, which is the distortion or the waving effect versus the flatness that we saw with the first type of glass, which is the annealed one. These important selection factors allow us to push the material limit to reach the maximum level of transparency, lightness, and luminosity, stressing the poetry of the material. The use of clear glass facade helps to achieve a higher transparency, but it also implies or requires solar protection in order to stop the solar heat gain outside of the building. So reason why very often we use a solar protection that could be also a solution. The coating is another factor that can impact the glass appearance, that means the color and the transparency. The first one is the solar coating. Usually you put it on the face number 2. This is to stop the solar heat gain outside of the building. And this is related to the G value of the building. I will not go too much into detail of that. Then the number 2 is the architecture coating. We in the office, we use it in the cavity to add some reflectance to the facade building. And I will show you 2 projects where we use this kind of architecture coating. We use it for example, in the Shard, and we use it also in the Paris courthouse, as well as the Moda, but also the Toronto courthouse, which is now under construction. And we use 2 different types. The first one, use it for the Shard, is the Iposol bright white. And the second one is cool light bright silver. And both, they don't have the same level of reflectivity. The first one for the Shard is 24%. The cool light bright silver is 32%. And I will explain why the difference. Then you have the low E coating. This is low emissivity. Usually we put it in the second phase from inside in order to keep the energy, the heat inside the building, or even the cold in the summer. So you keep the inside the building. And this is about the U value of the facade. There is a similarity between the building skin and sunglasses. To stop the sunlight or to avoid glare, you can use a tinted or mirror glasses. This is one way to solve it. This would solve the glare issues in reducing the quantity as well as the quality of daylight. For sunglasses, you can easily take them off when there is no sun or an excessive daylight level. Otherwise, you can also choose choose a clear sunglasses, but then you will need a shutter or a solar protection. This is the same for a building. In order to avoid tinted glass, and for example, the examples that George mentioned, in order to avoid tinted glass, the building glass facade needs to be fitted with a sunshade system, which is usually automated and could be also connected to the BMS of the building management system of the building. So once the sun is away, the sunshade could be retracted and you can enjoy a view to outside as well as daylight inside the building in bringing luminosity and lightness inside the space. Transparency and opacity are usually calibrated in relation to the building functions. For this project, the Manhattanville, the new Columbia University campus, that I have the pleasure to be the partner in charge, with the first building of the phase 1 already delivered, we use 3 different materials for 3 different functions. For the first one, the Jerome L. Green Science Center, which is a neuroscience lab, we use glass because we were looking for daylight. For the second one, on the left, we use aluminum panels. This was the Lamphus Center of the Art, which include the School of the Art of Columbia University. We use aluminum in order to better calibrate light, and you will see why the functions. And the third one to the right, which is the conference center, close to the subway also. We have 2 parts. One, we use concrete for the auditorium to have enough acoustic inertia. And then we use glass for offices and for the meeting rooms. For the first building, the Jerome Green Science Center, which is a place for work and research, a glass has been used to maximize the use of the daylight, providing ergonomics and indoor environment comfort. As a result, semantic and function dialogue together to serve science. In order to take advantage from the daylight, scientists are placed around the perimeter of the building. Opaque functions are located in the middle. So here we're talking about 4,000 square meter floor plate, which has been articulated in 4 quad and with 2 axes, one north vertically north-south mainly for circulation, and one east-west, the horizontal one. This is for the active area, which include meeting, informal meeting space and break space with double height. So this is, for example, the interactive double height space inside this, and you see the use. We have always transparency. So here, when you are in the center, you look to the left, to the right, to the top, to the bottom, you see always outside. And this is very important to find your self-orientation. Again, another images from the double height showing the informal and the break space. This space is also used for meetings room, always with view to the exterior. Here we have a view to the Hudson River. You can see the viaduct on the west side. And this is also the double height looking to the Hudson. This is looking to Broadway, where we can see the subway. And now we will be talking about this problem and relation to glass also. So the building during the night, as a magic lantern, the building create a luminous and joyful presence in the city. Having said this, the proximity to the elevated subway was a major urban context constraint, which include vibration and noises. The building has to deal with 50% OITC, outside, inside transmission coefficient for acoustic mitigation requirement. On the subway level, we have 88 decibel. Inside the building, we should get 44 decibel. So it's a significant cut. The second major constraint that the building has to deal with was the sun exposure. Reason why we have 4 quad with 5 different glass facade typology in response to the environment condition, that means the sun exposure and the acoustic. So we can see on the left, the quad A, we have the type, the T1, which is a single facade with only interior shade for glare control. We don't have double skin. The T2 on the top and the right on the top, we have double skin for acoustic mitigation, but no exterior shade. We have only interior shade for, again, glare control. The T3 is an active double skin for acoustic mitigation. And in the middle, we have cavity shade protection, as well as interior shade for glare. The T4, which is in the notch, this is a single skin with only triple glazing. That means we reduce the requirement for acoustic because we are talking about informal meeting space and break space. The type 5, where we are completely away from noise and from sun exposure, it's a regular double glazing or the regular IGU. A glass which was an asset for the daylight was also the solution for acoustic. But at the same time, to solve the acoustic issue, this cavity, the 40 centimeter cavity, has to be sealed. And when the cavity is sealed, that means you produce solar heat gain inside, and you can transmit this solar heat gain inside the building. So reason why the building envelope is fitted with is double automated shading system. Inside the cavity, we have the first shading system that stops the solar heat gain. Inside, we have a second shade for glare control. Both are connected to cell on the roof, connected to the BMS of the building management system, which allow us to achieve the light harvesting. That means when the shade is dropped down, you reduce the quantity of artificial light inside, the sensor will detect it and will increase the light inside. When the sun is away, or the sun, or you have a cloudy sky, the shade will go up and the light inside will be reduced because the sensor will detect this difference. So we have two different shades. The exterior one, which is in yellow color here, is 10% openness. That means it's quite transparent. When it's dropped down, you see through it. The interior one is less than that, is 3%. And this is a very important problem, and that I would like to share with you. When we had the need to reduce the light in some area to 1%, and we can achieve it in dropping down both shade. Then when you drop down two different density of shade, you have what we call moire effect. So we could achieve this with 5% inside, but 5% and 10% create the moire effect. We are obliged to go to 3% inside, combined with 10% to get the 1% without the moire effect. So this is a section through the cavity of the glass. You see that the 40 centimeter. And again, the outer glass panel is made with annealed laminated glaze, annealed to avoid anisotropy and to avoid waving. And then in the middle, we have the cavity, and inside we have the IGU with done, the exterior face is heat strengthened glass. Yes, here the heat strengthened is okay because this layer is not the first layer exposed to the sun. It's inside, we can do it with heat strengthened. And then the inner one, we use a double laminated annealed glass, and the assembly was made with DuPont Sentry glass, and this is for blast requirement. That means if in the case of blast, so this glass will not go away. If you use temporary or regular heat strengthening, then the glass may go away. So we use a Sentry glass interlayer with annealed, so the glass will stay in place in case of breaking. The cavity, the sealed cavity, I said, solve the acoustic issue, but create solar heat gain. So here we have laboratories, and we have 6 times air change per hour. Every hour, we change the air 6 times. This air will go to the machine, to the mechanical machine, and will exhaust from the HVA system and will be 3 times filtered and dehumidified. That means it's very clean air. Usually what we do, we blow up this air in the street. What we did in this specific case, we use this waste exhaust air, and we send it in the cavity and pass it through this cavity and raise towards the outlet louvers on the top, on the rooftop level. With a very slow movement, is about 0.5 meter per second. It's very slow. And why? To avoid any vibration, shade vibration, and which causes the scientist distraction. So this cavity in the summer, or this double skin, will help to keep the heat outside the building. And in the winter, it will protect from the cold, or will keep the heat inside the building. This is really a very high performance glass facade designed as acoustic and thermal buffer, maximizing daylight level and creating a comfort indoor environment while achieving light harvesting, and also energy savings. And as a result of this double skin, we had an annual cost saving of 32%. We have an energy use saving of 35%. And we have a CO2 emission saving of 33%. Of course, this is as compared to an ASHRAE baseline buildings. The second building, which is the Lamphist Center of the Art, include the School of the Art of Columbia University and the Wallach galleries. So this is a stacking section showing the different function in the building. I'm showing this just to explain to you what that means, calibrating the opacity. So, and above, the ground floor is completely transparent and in relationship with the exterior. The first floor, the second floor, the American way, that means the floor just above the ground floor, this is a movie theater, which does not require any daylight. Reason why the facade is opaque. The level above, we have a flexible theater. This is a school to teach theater. Of course, the program calls for black box, completely opaque. It took us maybe 6 months to convince them that, guys, believe us, we need to create transparency. So you can use this with your performance, you use the city background. And it works at the end. This is what we did. The reason why we have glass here. The level above is, and here we're talking about, when I say the level above, is 2 levels, in fact, because we have a mezzanine. The level above is the Wallach Gallery, which are art galleries, and the floor top is multi-purpose use for music, for dance, rehearsal, speech, and some music, pianoforte or things like that. Reason why the building transparency is carefully calibrated in relation to the program need. So opaque skin for the movie theater, just where you see the Lamphist Center written on the building, this is in the movie theater. And then above, we have the double skin for the flexible theater. We go with double skin because we find that we are still enough close to the subway, and this space require a absolute silence. So we didn't take any risk. We went with double skin, and we had colored shutter in the middle. We can transform it to black box. So when the shutter is down, is colored red. So when you are in the outside and you see red, that means the building is used in black box. And when it's retracted, that means they are using the background of the city as part of the performance. And then the level just above, where you see this poster, is the art gallery. And they use this poster, which is quite transparent. From inside, you keep seeing outside, and from outside, they announce the activity happening. And on the rooftop is the multi-purpose set as I explained it. This is the movie theater, nothing special. It's dark space. For the 110-seat flexible theater, which designed, I said, was double skin, we take advantage from the exterior view while dealing with acoustic mitigation. As you can see here, the skyline of the city, of the neighborhood, could be part of the performance. Here we are in the Wallach Gallery space, which is also open to the city, was a regular IGU, regular double glazing, but double glazing fitted with a double interior shade system. And this is to control the light, the level of light. And why? Because again here, we had the requirement to have 1%, not more. If not, no one will borrow you Picasso or other, or maybe Paul Klee, let's say, because on paper it's more fragile. So in order to respect the international requirement, we have to provide the 1%, and was impossible to provide it with only one, keeping the possibility to see the city. So we can use one, or we can use two at the same time. And this is the top floor, which multi-purpose space with a skylight. capturing the daylight coming from the north while stopping the sun coming from the south. So the skyline is protected with a louvers inclined, take only the daylight from the north, protecting from the south. And this space has been recently used as dance performance, and this was on YouTube and was great performance. The third building, which is the Forum, is a conference center that housed Columbia World Project and the Obama Scholars Program, that mean which include offices and meetings. So because here we have 437-seat auditorium, very close to the subway. It was made with concrete in order to provide enough inertia to deal with acoustic vibration and acoustic noise and acoustic and vibration constraint. While the offices on the other side are located on the opposite side, are made out of glass, taking advantage from daylight and view to the Hudson River and the campus square. For us, when you say space for work, does mean daylight, does mean glass. Space for performance and other thing which does not require daylight could be something else. And the ground floor, I was talking about transparency because the ground floor of the whole campus, we specify it because we work on the master plan, and we call this the urban layer. All this urban layer is highly transparent, and we were very keen about keeping the transparency to connect the building to the city. This is towards Broadway. We expose the bracing, the steel bracing element to create dialogue with the existing viaduct, which made also in glass. Inside the building, the interior partition are completely made out of glass, creating luminosity, but also enhancing conviviality and teamwork environment. This building is seated beside the MBB, or the Jerome Green Science Center. I call this the MBB because the building is mind-brain behavior, because the building is specialized on works on the brain. And we have 2 Nobel Prize working on this building, so it's a great building. So the Forum is seated beside the first one, and the Forum is made with single skin, not double skin. But we pay some attention to express this single skin to have dialogue with the double skin. So these 2 buildings, they have something common. They are designed with the same hand. The glass in the Forum is a stick system facade, but made always with low iron, but the glass is coated because we didn't have exterior shading. So because we don't have the exterior shading and we cannot stop the solar heat gain inside the building, we coated the glass. So when you are there, you see very small difference between this third building and the Jerome Green because the coating we add on the building. Here we are in Paris. This is La Maison des Avocats, we call it the Moda. This building is very specific. I'm showing this drawing just to say that 2/3 of the site is inappropriate for deep foundation. Because we are above the line of the metro, the 13 and the 14, and we don't have place to anchor the building. Reason why we have to anchor only on the 1/3 available for deep foundation. And reason why we create a cantilever of 26 meters above the metro line 13 and the axis of the metro line 14. As I said, reason why the building need to be very light. So for this reason is made out of a steel structure, a glass, and a concrete slab. It appears luminous and transparent while dealing with serious vibration and acoustic mitigation requirement. This also, the glass allow us to bring luminosity inside the interior space. this building, the Moda, is seated beside the Kurt House building. This came just after the first one. And both are using exactly the same glass and very similar facade. For both buildings, we use the same architecture coating, which I call the cool light bright silver, that provide us 32% of reflectance. You know, George in the beginning was talking about tinted glass building. We deeply believe that it's sometimes you need to do some real action in order to mitigate the presence of the building in the city. Sometimes the program implies that the building needs to be so big, but the architect needs to pay attention to understand how the scale of the building could be mitigated within the context, instead of amplifying the arrogance of the building. And you will see two different cases. Here in Paris, we dealt with 24%, 32%, sorry, reflectance. And we'll talk later about the chart, you see a different case. So this is the facade also. It's about double skin, but ventilated, is passive double skin, naturally ventilated double skin, and not active like in Colombia, which inside, between the two layers of glass, we have always the shade, motorized shade, to stop the solar heat gain. So that in case of sun, the shade would be deployed in order to protect the building. The building was also fitted with PV cell, and many people use an opaque panels for the PV. We use a custom PV panels made out of glass. So even between cell, you can see there is transparency, and they have a lighter presence instead of having opaque panels. This is just for the pleasure, is nighttime view from the ring road of the building. This is again another nighttime view. Here we are in New York, and a different story. So this is the New York Times headquarters in Times Square. This is a tower made out of ceramic and glass. The offices, the offices glazed facade is protected with a second layer of ceramic. It's sort of musharabi. That means we know what does mean this. Is a sort of open double skin that stop the sun before hitting the glass. This protect from solar heat gain, but also at the same time allow light and exterior view. As you can see the image, you can see outside. At the ground floor, as always, because the ground floor, it's very important level, disconnect the building to the city. We are very keen about keeping luminosity and transparency in order to reinforce the relationship with the city, as I said. But here again, beyond this courtyard, we have the auditorium. And this sequence, auditorium, the courtyard, the lobby, is connected to the 8th Avenue. So from the 8th Avenue, you can look inside the auditorium when the shade is not dropped down. But of course, they can drop down the shade in order to create the privacy inside the auditorium. If not, the transparency in both directions is ensured. Here we are in London. This is the shard of glass. Another example of how the use of specific glass can help to mitigate the presence of a high-rise building in the city. Here we are talking about 315 meters, is exactly like the Eiffel Tower in Paris, but we have people living inside. This is a really very transparent building. I'm showing this image with the sun behind to show that you see the core inside is opaque, but the building is really transparent. We have a naturally ventilated double skin, of course, fitted with motorized sunscreen. And here you will ask, why always double skin? It's very simple. When you have high-rise building, you cannot put sunscreen outside because you can have a sunny and windy day. And beyond a certain speed of wind, usually beyond 6-7 meters, maybe today some supplier can provide 8 meters per second, then the shade need to go up. The shade to go up, but the sun is still here, so you have solar gain. In order to protect the sun, you need to protect it from wind. Reason why we add the double skin, so you can drop down the shade and protect from solar heat gain. Here, as I said, we use low iron glass with the Ipisol bright white with a reflectance of 24%. But why? At 24% because the building, the shard the facade are inclined. So we 32, it was too much. We don't need. With 24, and because they are inclined, they reflect the sky and they mitigate the presence of the building, the sky and the skyline of London. Here again, a completely different story. Here we are in Miami Beach. We are at the limit of Miami Beach and Surfside. This is really the last lot in Miami North Beach, called the 87 Park Project. Is an exceptional site in front of the ocean. The site is really suspended between the sky and the park. The building seems to levitate above the park. I'm showing this building because this is one of our very rare projects where the use of tinted glass was mandatory by code. And which code? Is the Turtle Code that consists of stopping 50% of the light coming from inside the building to not mislead the turtle that come to lay eggs on the beach during the full moon. We are not allowed to give, to mislead the turtle because they can come and this is not the full moon. The tinted glass has been only used where it was necessary to satisfy the code. If you go in North Beach, Miami North Beach, all buildings are completely quite black, but everything is black. Even the handrail, it becomes a sort of fashion. Here we pay attention, we put it only where we need it. Reason why the railing has been kept in low iron glass because it's not needed. And just to give an information about the cantilever, we have 6-meter cantilever on this balcony. The storefront at the ground floor is completely glassed also in order to keep it very open to the park. So the building looks like levitating above the ground. And the storefront is also made of a glass mullion in order to enhance the transparency and the connection with outside between the building and the park. And also the interior space is very luminous despite the tinted glass, because really we use the tint that we need to cut exactly what we need to cut. Of course, the supplier suggests a regular glass which cut more than this, basically regular. We exactly choose what we need in order to keep the transparency between the inside and outside. And this space has been fitted generously with vegetation 3 meters high in order to give the impression that not only the building is levitating, but also the park is invading the lobby and exiting from the other side to create to continue to create the garden on the south side of the building. Here we are in Kloppenburg in Germany, in Cologne, and I'm showing this building just to show you another typology of another complexity in the geometry. This is a department store with a complex geometry and morphology. Is quite transparent building that looks like a greenhouse. Despite the complexity of the geometry, we use double glazing skin. We have 5,500 square meters of flat glass panel. You see the shape is curved, but we are using always the same panel and flat. It's not curved. These panels are mounted in fish scale for better waterproofing. So the glass skin was fixed on a timber structure. Here we use a mid iron. I really don't remember why we use mid iron, not low iron, with low E coating, with interior shade for glare. So because this is a department store, the building is fully air conditioned. We had no problem. And this is another type of complex geometry. This is the Pathé Foundation in Paris. The glass is mainly used on the top floor where offices are located and where daylight and exterior view are desired. So this is the interior view of the top floor, the offices, where the skin of the building becomes transparent, bringing daylight and luminosity to the interior space, but also offering the exterior view to the exterior, and enhancing which enhance the ergonomics and the indoor environment conditions. So as a conclusion, I would like just to say a few words. I would like to say that we architects, in order to keep control on our design and to do exactly what we would like to do, in other words, to have the choice, it's really very important and crucial to us to have a minimum of technical curiosity, background, and knowledge, not only in glass, but also in all materials in general, in engineering, and in science, so that architecture, the art of building, remain a science that includes social and human sciences, and not only the art of imagery. Very simple. Otherwise, someone else, I would say, with all respect, will be a consultant or the contractor, will keep telling us what to do instead of telling them what do we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antoine, for this, I would say, unusual presentation. It's on one hand extremely didactic, and on the other, you made us dream. Before I forget, you mentioned things in ceramic and glass, and you reminded me of the firm's work with the beautiful skins of clay and ceramics in Lyon and elsewhere. So I hope you can one day prepare a lecture about the use of ceramic and other material.
Yeah, why not?
What I want to say here is that what I realize is that we do not get poetics only by accident or inspiration and so on. It can happen with hard work, with knowledge, what I would call cold science in a way, but it is there in the process. And you reminded me with this kimono skin. You reminded me of Pierre Charot's Maison de Verre in Paris.
Yeah, of course, you're right.
It's really,
yes.
It's something that I forgot to mention in my presentation. It was also a milestone in the use of and daylight inside. And what I liked actually about your presentation is that except for some complicated sections, of course, that I could not grasp fully because they are too small, but there are these very low-tech slides of basic drawings. It reminded me of basic courses, you know, where facts and basic information is there. It is very well communicated, and the real buildings come as a demonstration of what was actually achieved. And this is really not usual. We've been so used lately to these 3D renderings with the promises that sometimes deliver and sometimes do not. So this idea of the 3D image replacing the actual thing. And what I liked here is that you have the basic explanation and then the actual building. So it's about realization, and this I think is important. I also want to say a word about anything. Of course, we are talking about extremely costly buildings. We are into the high tech, and this idea of the low iron glass and so on. Obviously, it takes us to another level of transparency and a lack of color deformation and so on. But I would like to know from you later when you will answer this first question, and of course after that to the public, what is the cost difference between the clear glass and the low iron glass? But this I will leave it for later. And I would like to speak about this fabulous thing of the turtles. I mean, we are in a country where until recently people were shooting, white storks traveling, and here you have a rule that forbids you to have a strong light so that you do not disturb the turtles coming to lay their eggs on the shore. I think in ethics, and the question of size mitigation. This is my last point. The size mitigation with glass. Yes and no. Of course, this idea of the glass helping mitigate large volumes in the city and so on happens at certain moments. In other words, with the color of the sky, with the angle taken, and so on. But it certainly is one of the ingredients. Obviously, it is one of the ingredients of how to make building respectful and decent in a city where more and more people are fighting for their presence. So I thank you very much for this, and I think we are ready now to take remarks, questions. I would like to start with Jihad, if you have anything, and then we open it up to the others. And Hiba, maybe you can help me with the questions and answers if possible.
One question. Thank you, George, and thank you, Antoine, for this wonderful overview of glass and architecture and scientific material constraints that you have to deal with in solving your architectural problems. This is truly fascinating. One question that came to mind this morning has to do with the longevity you have in mind when you design your buildings of glass. How long do you design them for?
If I use Renzo's words, he doesn't say less than 100 years. So I'm not sure about that. But anyway, what I would like to say, the glass is a material that they can stay here for forever if it's not broken. I mean, it's a durable material. You mean durability is in time, or durability from the sustainability standpoint?
I thought of durability from the point of view of environmental changes.
Environmental.
Durability
okay.
from the point of view of
okay.
urban considerations.
The glass today is a sustainable material because it's recyclable. And in Beirut, after the explosion, people chose an aspect of how to recycle glass. So today, many glass manufacturers are like other material, like the aluminum. Today also, the aluminum, we have sustainable aluminum as we have sustainable glass. So sustainability is also to do with light harvesting, because you can spend a lot of energy if you make opaque buildings, and then when you have an opaque building, is opaque forever. That means even when you have cloudy sky, you don't have the sun, you have to compensate. You have to put artificial light inside to spend energy. Okay. With the glass, when you have sunny day and you have too much light, you can drop the shade and then stop. You spend energy just to drop the shade. And then when you have a cloudy day, when you don't have enough light, you can raise the shade to have the light coming from outside. Any light come, it's helpful and welcome. And I show you, for example, the Jerome Green Center, the lab in New York, that, by the way, all these 3 buildings are gold LEED. It's not enough. We have buildings, platinum LEED, but gold is not bad. It's already not bad. So they are sustainable, and it's about engineering. I mean, you know, architecture is a feat of art and engineering. Okay, two fields whose combination is essential to creativity. If you combine the architecture with the engineering, you will have you can design sustainable building.
If I may, because you just mentioned the gold and platinum and so on, we have a question from our friend architect George Andraus. George, do you want to say it, or shall I read the? Do you want to say it with your voice, or shall I read what you wrote in the chat? Maybe I will read it. So he says, "Wonderful work, wonderful material indeed. Where do you think we're going with glass and sustainability? Deciding on a glass building or Moda, for instance, where floor to ceiling transparency is not essential, using 6 layers of glass and ventilating artificially to achieve 6 air changes an hour. How is the production of all this glass and its maintenance sustainable?" I'm sure you have an answer for that.
So I think there is confusion, and because the 6-hour air change, this is for Columbia University, the laboratory, and not for the Moda. I think maybe Joe is talking about Columbia University project. So for Columbia University, because he's talking about the 6-hour change, I will respond to this building. Then I can say something about the Moda.
Yes.
When you talk about research, you cannot neglect the daylight. For us, work and research mean daylight. You need daylight in order also to, you know, the light is essential for us, because in some specific case, for some people, medicine suggests to expose themselves to daylight a certain number of hours during the day, because this is healthy. So for us, daylight, it's very important. This is one problem. But the second problem, we have also the acoustic mitigation problem. We have the subway with 88 decibel on the subway, and we have to cut 50% of that. So the double skin, the glass came from daylight, but one skin will not do the job for acoustic mitigation. We were obliged to have a sealed cavity. When you have sealed cavity, you create solid heat gain inside. And because we have west air, instead of blowing up this in the street, we blow this within the cavity and will go naturally to the top. This is the chimney effect, because when you send the air inside, with the chimney, naturally ventilation chimney will go to the top of the building and will exit. So, and this building, as I said, it's gold LEED. And I talk about energy saving 32%, and also, I mean, I gave some numbers of that. Now, with regard to the Moda, the Moda is La Maison des Avocats. It's offices also, and these people, they love also daylight. They would like to. They come from La Cité, in the middle of Paris, to in very old building, very opaque, and they really appreciate having more daylight. And in this building, the ceiling looks very high, or the clear height look big, because we don't have full ceiling, because we have concrete slab exposed. The heat and the cold are inside the slab. Reason why we don't have full ceiling.
There is another question here. How do you see the buildings of the future? Will COVID designs? And what will be your next challenge in the use of glass? Is it related to that, to the health crisis caused by the COVID-19? Do you have any ideas on that?
So this is a good question. So you know, today we are making progress. So I will connect this question to the question before about the sustainability. mean, we did a lot of complete full height glass facade. And but with the courthouse in Paris, the courthouse in Toronto, in Canada, which is under construction, and the competition we just won for the hospital, this is to do with COVID, we consider an opaque part, 1 meter. The first 1 meter is opaque from inside, but from outside, you go with the glass floor to floor. So we do what we call shadow box. That means from outside, you have the same gloss. You don't design building with horizontal line, with horizontal stripes. The glass is from the top to the bottom, but from inside, and you use the glass. You can use the glass as cladding because you know you can use the glass also as cladding.
Mm-hmm. There is a question by Ahmed Araji. He says, do you think that glass manufacturers in Lebanon can adapt their capabilities to supply projects that employ glass incorporated envelopes?
So let me, I know between the attendees here, between some people work with us. I saw the name of Pierre Damous. I say also Rima Bourahmi, because we had 2 projects in Lebanon. Yes. And they know very well that one project, which was the headquarters of the GBL, is like these buildings. We have also double skin. We have the same performance. We have the same requirement. We have the same level of quality on the project. Unfortunately, this has been stopped recently because that means even 2 years ago or 1.5 years, because the crisis. But even when we work in Beirut, even for the museum, we didn't have double skin, but we have also high thought about a lot of thought about the glass use, because it was also about transparency, is about the transparency between the martyr square and the sea. And I know today, for maybe for several years, when you say glass in Lebanon, people will be a little bit scared about that. But I would like just to say something. When 9/11 happened in New York, it was exactly the beginning where we were designing the New York Times building. And the discussion with the client, what we do. They are pushing us to build, to make our cities with bunkers. What we do, we fall in this trap, or we keep living with the light. And the client said, we stay with the light. And we did this transparent building, ceramic and glass, just after 9/11. So I'm not expecting, because this happened, this big drama, which is really undescribable drama, and that in the future we will be only building with concrete. I just don't believe on that. So this is what I have to say.
Okay, very, very interesting answer. This is why what I mentioned by داوني بالتي كانت هي الداء.
Exactly. داوني بالتي كانت هي الداء.
Perhaps there's something cathartic about moving ahead. But of course, the economy is, we're talking about expensive buildings, aren't we?
But George, it's also about culture. And you have to start somewhere. Architects in Lebanon, they are not in an easy position because they cannot be demanding in front of the client. We can say no to the client. We can say, the client said that, we say no, we are not in agreement. Our name is on the building, and you have also to make some effort. And we find, and if people search us because they are looking for some quality. But in Beirut, we have Lebanese are very educated people, and in the sense that they know what happened outside. They are aware about what's happening, and we need just peace. We need just some calm, and we have great ideas. We had people with very demanding people and with a lot of capacity, and they can understand What does mean this? Then the example is what we were doing with the SGBL project. It's was like one of these projects. It's the same level, not less. Not because we are in Lebanon, we will do something less good.
I would like to comment on this, and then Antoine, what I think is very interesting in your presentation, and you kind of reflected on this now again, is that once the architect, of course, I'm talking about an informed architect, gets in charge again, then the best choices can be made. Of course, if it is an enlightened architect, caring for the environment, caring for the users, to go back to the Lacaton et Vassal, because I think that this Pritzker Prize this year is a new paradigm shift. We are moving a bit away from the star architect. And although the Renzo Piano building, of course, Renzo Piano is a star architect, but he doesn't act as one. And this is
no, he doesn't like the name. He doesn't like to be called star.
Of course he doesn't, because he's of the caliber of the stars, but he's doing his own trajectory without caring about being. But what I want to go back to is this idea that an acknowledged, an enlightened architect, an architect who works for and with the people, with participation and making the proper choices, is extremely important nowadays, more than ever. Because for a while, the role of the architect has been diminishing in favor of, depending on the context, developers, contractors, people dealing with legal issues, sometimes clients who have already in mind a model that probably does not suit even their needs. And there is, of course, with the new media, there is so much happening that it is a bit a mess. And actually, what I liked in your presentation, it has a didactic aspect. It was like a lecture, to students, and at the same time, it is of the level of which is an extraordinary work. And I think we have to go back to this, which is knowledge, information, facts, and it is very important. Now, to go back to this question that is asked by somebody here. There are two questions. One question about heating around glass buildings. Was there any measurement made around the shard, for example? One can the building level, but what about the heat flux to the neighboring buildings? But I think here your shard is actually slanted.
Exactly.
It goes up, so the heat goes in the air. It doesn't go to the neighborhood, does it?
I think the person who asked this question maybe has in mind what happened in London with the building designed by the iPhone building. The building which is curved is a building curved like that, and concentrating the sun to the street, and some cars burn. So our building is inclined to the sky, so the heat is going back to the sky, and
okay.
We don't have measurement. I cannot pretend, or maybe I'm not aware about measurement.
Okay, there is somebody here, Eric Japp. He said he's an architect and learning from Columbia project glass facade layer. Is it possible to do annealed laminated glass outer layer and heat inner layer in one panel without cavity?
Yes.
Considering it is hard to convince the client to do double skin in most cases.
Today, okay, let me talk about that. Where the double skin came from? In order to achieve mitigation, acoustic mitigation, you need a void between the two layers of glass. You can go to 10 centimeter in between without risk of condensation. Okay, 10 centimeter is the maximum in between. But in order to achieve our acoustic mitigation, we have to go to 35 centimeter. We do it 40 in order to get access inside. But beyond 10 centimeter, you have a risk of condensation. That means you need to get access to open the door so you can clean in case of condensation. What we did in Colombia, we have one door open every two, and all doors are not operable because it will cost more money to have every door open, okay, to clean it. So I think if there is no acoustic acoustic requirement, then maybe yes, today there is a product that we call a closed cavity. I think the closed cavity is like double skin, but in one unit, not assembled into layers. But we have to be careful. I'm talking about annealed for the exterior one, but I insist on laminated because the annealed can break in larger piece. So it should be laminated to stay in place.
There was a question about the maintenance of glass, but you answered it, I guess, that perhaps each facade has its own solutions.
Of course, yeah.
This idea of alternating the doors, one opens, one does not, and then you access and clean.
Yeah, I mean, the cleaning is always a problem and costs money, but you know, George, when you have a car, when you have beautiful car, when you have a car, you go once a year to the here in Paris, we have visit technique. Once a year, we have to go with the car. They will see it, or maybe every 2 years, and then you do the maintenance that you need because this is mandatory. So when you have a building, you have to do some maintenance.
Yes, we have here the mechanic, but nobody looks at the car.
You don't
just
go.
pay money to somebody who pays money to somebody else. Then
yeah,
that's it.
So I would like just to let you know that we have people attending from New York and from Miami now.
With you.
Yeah, I saw some names. William
Actually, there was a message for you, Antoine. That's a personal message by somebody. It seems it was a provider, and maybe you don't work with them anymore. It was a very funny message.
Which one?
I will tell you. The name is. Wait, I'm getting there. Michel Sochelli. I bring greetings to the WSP in London, and I see you do not need us anymore. So it seems it's somebody you need.
This is WSP. No, this is Steve Bossy. No, this is from Steve Bossy. No, but no. Okay, let me say WSP, Steve Bossy team was our facade consulting for the Société Générale in Beirut.
Okay. So they are jealous you're working with somebody else now. You have to do something about it.
But you know, it's, we have so many people. Everyone would like to work with us, so it's not easy.
It was a joke. It was a joke by somebody here. Okay. Any more questions, issues? Jihad, others?
Sure. I have my hand raised.
Go ahead, please.
Whenever you feel like it.
Go ahead, please.
So going back to the poetry of glass, I can't help but think of the relationship between glass and water on one hand and glass and sand on the other. Now, glass and water, of course, because they share many aspects having to do with interaction with light, and I've seen that you presented two buildings which had these two elements together. But I also often like to mention how glass made it possible for us humans to experience the sliding of water drops on glass, which is one of the probably most lasting poetic experiences we have looking on rain through glass. And on the other hand, there is the connection of glass and sand, where sand is essential to glass. And we are building in our environments, buildings with glass and sandy environments. What do these elements coming together bring to your mind? What issues have they brought in designs that involve building glass in sandy environments, or the water coming together with glass that you can tell us about?
It's complex question. I mean, there is two things. The glass is made out of sand, correct? And you are you making reference to the fact that to produce glass, we have to use the sand? And
probably yes.
I certainly think of them together as one constitutive on the other, but I'm also thinking of building glass environments in sandy environments that have to deal with massive sandstorms.
Okay,
etc.
honestly,
you had to deal with that, and what sort of issues does it bring to you?
Honestly, we didn't have the pleasure to work to build building in the Gulf area. So here, where you can maybe be faced to this kind of problem. I can't talk about special experience with glass. Honestly, I don't have experience with sand and glass. I spent 3 years trying to do something in the Emirate, but at the end, it doesn't work. I think we are not very, we are not prepared maybe to do project there, maybe not yet, because it's very difficult environment. So anyway, so I don't have, but the problem maybe would be the joint. So we have to pay attention to the joint that we use. Maybe we have to pay attention to the facade need to be maybe more smooth, so you don't have sand deposit on the facade, because sand, or maybe even not necessarily sand, but dust with the humidity near the sea can create a maintenance problem. But there are a lot of tall buildings in the Gulf, and I think they are, I don't know, they are, it seems they are keep doing buildings with glass. I saw Zaha Hadid office, they did something there completely in glass, quite sophisticated shape. So I really don't know.
There's somebody with a question, Shireen Omara. She's asking about, she's interested in this, the turtle issue. And then she's asking, I think it's a great question, is it possible to share mitigation strategies for reducing bird strikes and the impact of light and reflection from architectural glass on bird migration? Have you done any studies, or are you aware of?
So we face this problem about bird. We face this problem in Toronto, because for the Court House in Toronto, we have some rules, some code, bird code that we have to respect. That we add only some point. We frit the glass with a certain density. By the way, we were facing this problem also for the bridge in Genoa. The bridge in Genoa, you have two screens because you have also walk for people. So you have in the middle, you have for cars, and two sides you have for people, but for maintenance also. In order to protect from wind, we have a screen, something like 2 meter high or 2.50 meter high. And here we had a frit glass in order to the glass to not disappear completely, so the bird they can see the glass, and there is some rules, so you have to respect distance between point and the dimension of the point. Then back to the turtle. The turtle was a big issue. We spent a lot of time. So we have two issues with the turtle. We have the light coming from inside to outside, which need to be cut by 50%, but we have also the lighting outside. We are not allowed to, we can only use two kinds of light. One is kind of red, and one is orange, very dense orange, because both could not be seen by the turtle. They are beyond their range of the frequency of light. So turtle, they don't see these two lights. So we are allowed to use them outside with a certain intensity, of course.
Okay, there is a question by Aram Yeredzian. It seems he wanted to raise his hand, but he's not capable of doing it. So I asked him to type it. And his question is the following. It's about building typology. He says, if different typologies have similar expression, about that. So maybe he's worried about the fact.
George, maybe can you hear me?
Yes, Aram,
yes.
My friend, how are you?
Go ahead, Aram.
Yeah, Antoine. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot. So I just wanted to say that I think the performative aspect is extremely important in building envelope, and this body of work is really very significant in pushing this building industry forward. But having said that, my kind of remark question is, if I look at the building typology and the evolution of building types, let's say the courthouse, right? The courthouse so it used to be last century maybe or before a very opaque and massive building because it represented something in society. And today it has become, like we saw in Paris and in other projects, coming up in Canada, it has become very transparent, which is really reflecting on the social dimension of that building typology, right? شفافية القضاء. And so the concept of شفافية is reflected in the architectural typology. And what, I'd like to hear your thoughts about other types. So although you have, your office did the healthcare center, for example, the Children's Hospital in Rammed Earth in Africa. Now the hospital in Paris, you talk about cladding in glass, right? The project, the public project in Malta had a lot of, parametric interesting work in terms of stone, but other projects are totally glass. Of course, you presented only the glass projects because of the theme, but I'm thinking a bit about the design process. My question is, how is the design process informed by, or what would inform the design process so that, you navigate between complete glass expression, which becomes the same for different building typologies, or actually not having a total glass expression?
Thank you for the question. I mean, I can have a complete lecture on this question, but I will try to be brief because honestly, in 5 minutes from now, I have another video conference. So, Aram, yes, how this works from design standpoint. Very often or always, we ask our question because the material that you use is related to the DNA of the place. You come to the place and we talk with the spirit of the place. We try to spirit, what is the DNA of this place? What do we have to do here? You mentioned Malta, for example. Malta, we use the stone because we are close to the fortification. We are part of the fortification. Our context, the DNA of the place is stone. Of course, you can work with the contrast also. We can do something else. You can do steel, but we use the stone. There is always a reason why we choose a material. In Uganda, for example, we developed the earth, and you are aware about that because you did some study yourself on the natural earth. And all this wall was very, very thick because we use very frugal material coming from then. And then we put only the technology in the roof because this is PV to produce and to provide shading. In Paris and Toronto, yes, you mentioned شفافية القضاء because both are courthouse. And indeed, this topic was also presented like that, saying these buildings need to be transparent because the transparency of flow. I mean, there is always, for Columbia, for example, we ask ourselves, in the European context, urban context, it's easy because you come and you have the urban fabric here. You know where to start from. We find ourselves in Manhattanville, in the middle of nowhere. We have nothing around on which we can take idea. The only things we found was the industrial DNA of the place. We were limited by the two viaduct, one on Broadway for the train, and one on the west on the Hudson River for cars. And then on the south we have an old pasteurized mill for a factory for milk pasteurization called Prentice. And then to the north we have Studebaker, which was industry for cars. And then beside we have the Nash building. So we find ourselves in very industrial building. and we try to use the steel coming from DNA of the place, and we complete with what we want. That means glass for daylight, aluminum for to control opacity, and then we use the concrete to have acoustic inertia for the building. The question of the material is related to the place, sometimes related to the function, but also we should not deny, we should not there is our curiosity. We need to develop things. We need to understand better how far we can go with the material and how far we can push a material. And George was talking about la terre cuite, terracotta, and how much we develop it. We go through it, and then we try to develop the glass. For example, yes, you are right. Pierre Charon did the La Maison du Verre in Paris, but this was 20 by 20. What we did in Japan was 40 by 40, and we had to go through a very complex approval process with the pompier.
The anti-seismic system. With
the but also with the fire people, to prove resistance to fire and things like that.
Antoine, I understood you have to leave, but I want to say one quick thing before you do, in answer to what Aram said, the idea of transparency in representation, which is that we have a courthouse and we design a building that is glass to speak or to represent transparency. I'm very suspicious of this. Why? Because more often than not, the idea of giving an image of something is to hide that it is not like that in the first place. In other words, building a glass building to speak of the transparency of law does not secure justice. Justice does not happen with the facade, and if we send a sign of transparency, and the history of the world is full of whether religious buildings, military buildings, administrative buildings, palaces, and so on, that claim something else than what they are actually. This is just a comment. So I think being interested more in the performance of glass rather than the representation of what glass can promise and probably not secure is also a big issue. We're entering into the symbolic to transcend the poetic, but the poetic is already great. So thank you. I think we have to stop here because you have to go.
I can spend 2 hours with you. That means I can.
Thank you for your generosity. I am sure you would. We thank you for your generosity and sharing with us an insider's view of how things are done. We're not only looking at the product, we're looking at how it is made. And this is very generous of you to tell us. And I've learned a lot. So thank you very much, Antoine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jihad and Hiba, for organizing this. And thank you, everybody, for the audience and the nice comments you've placed in the chat.
I'm receiving a lot of messages here, all very kind messages. Thank you for all the attendees. Thank you for you, George. Thank you for Hiba, Jihad, giving me this opportunity. And I hope to see you soon. Take care, guys.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.